Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mountaineer, the locker room, then and now. Greg, Chris, Frank, Fear, Mickey Plumley. Guys, it's awesome to be back with you guys and been looking really forward to this. Couldn't wait to get on tonight.
Hey, Greg, we missed you, buddy. Really did. There were long pauses when you were gone, and now you're back. It's good to see you, right, Mick? I mean,
It's tremendous to see you again, Greg. Welcome back, my friend. Good to have you back, and I'm glad we have your basketball expertise. You're back just in the nick of time for basketball things, my
that's
friend.
right.
There you go. And Frank, I'm not sure how to take it. You said there were long pauses. Does that mean I'm just like a windy gap filler, maybe?
No. We were waiting. We thought you were going to talk, and you weren't there, and so we just. But actually, the viewers liked that. They said those long pauses were insightful.
Oh,
So we made out okay. But it's good to have you back, and I think
well,
we got people saying the same thing here. There we go.
Hey,
Yeah, there you
yeah.
go.
Hey, Mark, appreciate that. And like I said, it's awesome to be back. And been a long road here to hoe, but I'm on the mend. I'm getting back in shape. And you might notice me. I'm in a prone position tonight, uh, just for comfort reasons. But yeah, getting better every day. Wife taking good care of me, and been home for a few weeks now, starting to get my strength back. So raring to go. And I
Great.
tell you what. Since it's been out, man, there's been a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of stuff to talk about. Lots of Mountaineer happenings, and been trying to keep up with it the best I can. I know you guys have been doing the same thing, and we've got a number of things. Of course, tonight we're going to chat about as we get started, but a lot of excitement going on, and women's game, men's games, football stuff happening. It's all coming to fruition here right before our eyes, and it's exciting times.
Yeah, no dead period. And it's also exciting because this is our launch show with your
Yep,
good friend Darren McGuffin on the
yep,
New River Network. So, Greg, that's your home network. You call games. You've had a show on there for a long
yep.
time. Talk a bit about that. Let the folks know what's happening here.
Well, we been in talks with Darren to try to get get all this set up, and he's one of the things I've always said about him in my time working with him and doing the games and doing the shows. He is an expert at this, and he puts out a great product, and he has a tremendous viewership. And I think he services the southern part of the state. Of course, with the online stuff nowadays, you can watch anywhere, but he is on cable down here in the southern part of the state, and has tremendous viewership down here. And like I said, he's just so good at what he does, and putting these things on, and he has a passion for it. He has the knowledge to go along with it, and all the best equipment in the world. And if anybody gets a chance to check out one of these game broadcasts or something like that, it's amazing to look at. I mean, it's the quality is so good, and so high. He's a true professional, and we've been looking forward to this because it's going to expand our viewership, but it's going to get us, uh, you know, out into places where we may normally not be seen, and by demographic, it may not normally see us. And I know people down here are just as passionate about the Mountaineers as people up north are, and the southern part maybe even more so. And so I think
Mhm.
it's going to be exciting for us, and hopefully exciting for people that are tuning in, and can't wait to get started with him. It's going to be good.
Good. And we're going to be on tonight. They're going to be Darren's going to take the tape, and right after the Oak Hill Princeton boys varsity game is over, it starts at 7. We'll be on, and we'll be on all week, and then next week, hopefully, we'll be able to simulcast live at 7. And again, as Greg said, that's on Facebook as well as their
Yep.
YouTube channel, Optimum
Yep.
Cable. I think it's what channel 7 and 41
I
down
think
there is.
Yeah, I'm not real sure now that they've changed those channels some, but I know it's either 7 or 17. We'll have to check with Darren to make sure. Uh,
Okay.
but uh, but I know it is on the cable down here. And and this, speaking of that, I failed to mention that his cable channels, actually, it's Fayette, Raleigh, part of Kanawha County, services uh, several thousand people, and tens of thousands of people. I'm thinking maybe around 40, and so a lot of people have access to it. and a lot of people watch it. And
Yeah.
I know the ball games are extremely popular.
Oh,
Back during the football season, there were nights when some of the football games had 25, 30,000 viewers.
that's right. That's
So
right. It's a very impressive.
wide footprint, and like I said, he does such a good job. People just enjoy watching. His quality programming quality is so good, the picture and all that, and he prides himself on that. He's worked hard to
Yeah.
get to where it's at, and get, like I said, keeps updated with all the latest equipment, and he just does a great job with it. It's a good channel and good production.
And I subscribe to the New River Network YouTube channel. You can too. And I also have a reciprocal with New River Network Facebook, and that's where it's going to be on.
Yep.
So clearly, when we say NRM on Facebook, that means we'll be on Facebook, but through the feed from the NRM New River Network Facebook.
Yep.
So that's great.
Yep.
That's great.
Sounds good.
So tonight, Greg and Mickey, we're going to talk about WVU football, the great things happening. Then we're going to have a tremendous guest for the third time, Cliff Hill, who does, what a job this guy does, former football coach with young high school players who want to play college football, and he helps them navigate those waters to get the best possible place for them, including hooked up with NIL funding, as well as sifting and sorting through the politics and all the grind of college. He's a great guest. He'll be with us at the bottom of the hour. But, we're looking forward to that.
Sorry to interrupt, Frank, but I know, thinking back to the last time I talked to him on the show, I was just amazed and really surprised at some of the things we learned about the NIL and the portal and all that from him, where he had a little better insight into it than most folks do. And he explained a lot of things to us that we didn't understand prior to that. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from him again, because he's had a lot of success with the guys he's working with now.
And again, the world's going to change again with revenue sharing coming next year. And the universities have to share revenue. And the talk is that they're likely going to be taking over from these collaboratives or cooperatives, the responsibility for the NIL outlay. So it's going to be, he's on top of that, and we don't want to steal his thunder. He'll talk about that. But we're going to talk about WVU football first. And what's amazing to me, as I put up update from what we had on last week, Mickey, when I think about where we were, I just looked it up. Rich Rodriguez was appointed on the 12th of December, and here we are on the 15th of January. He not only has 25 players in the portal, but he also has a staff. I mean, when you think about the staffs back in your day and you look at this, it's almost impossible. It's just, you can't even compare. I mean, this is a 20 plus person staff, and it's not unusual. It's that way at major programs all over the country. It just shows you how big major college football has become, and also with the speed that new coaches have to they have to hit the ground not only running, but I mean really speed running, because they got to put together a staff, they got to recruit players, and they have to do it fast.
Yeah, back in the day, Frank, in terms of Mountaineer locker room, then and now, a lot of people gave Jim Carlin credit for being a CEO type, as you referred to him in your book, and as many people referred to him. And today that's required. It's no longer optional. I mean, you have to have a CEO type at the helm, and then you've got to have a staff that has expertise in a number of different areas, some of which, are beyond just football. For example, the general manager that Rich Rod just added to the staff. That's a necessity in today's era of the portal and NIL. You need somebody kind of like a CFO, really, on your staff that's managing the money side of the whole thing. And, in such a short period of time, he's had, 33 days? I would dare say Rich Rod hasn't gotten a lot of sleep in the last month, because he's made so many additions to the staff. And again, in comparison to then and now, I think Jim Carlin had 9 people on his staff, and Rich Rod's got what, 23 or so
Yep.
when it's said and done. So,
Yeah.
dramatic changes, but you have to have that to compete and survive in today's collegiate football world. No doubt.
Question about it. No question. And in fact, it's interesting, Greg. The same thing in basketball. When you looked at college staffs back in the day, and you look now, you could just looking on the court and how many assistants there are with the head coach. It's amazing. But the one thing I want to get your guys' take on is the one position up there that is blank is offensive coordinator. What have you guys heard in West Virginia? Is Rich Rod going to be the OC?
I have not heard anything about it. I haven't heard even anybody mention it really, and it makes you wonder: is he going to do it himself? I would think not, but he it's his offense, that he of course created, and you just wonder if maybe he feels that nobody can do it like him. I don't know, but I would think that he would have somebody as the offensive coordinator, and maybe he's waiting on somebody. That idea comes to mind. Wait for somebody's season to end when there's only 2 teams left. I can't imagine that, but it's kind of odd that he has not named an offensive coordinator yet.
Yeah, last week we talked about the fact that Travis Trickett had been hired, and the presumption Mickey and I talked about was that he might be the OC because he has that background. But then it came out, and I checked on the WVU website. He's a senior. You'll see it there, senior offensive analyst, and so that's not an offensive, a primary offensive. I shouldn't say it that way, but he's an assistant. Rather than the person who's calling the shots offensively. He'll have a lot of input, obviously. So, but it's interesting, too, when you think of everything as a matter of evolution. No secret, we had a lot of problems on defense last year. And again, no surprise, Mickey, that the first major addition that he made was to get Zach Alley from Oklahoma University.
Yeah, he's going to do a tremendous job. He's looked upon as just being innovative, young, buck, up and coming in the football world. And look what he did at Oklahoma with their offense. So what a great addition that he made. A lot of people are taken aback by the salary. But, hey, again, in today's world, you pay for what you get. And I think he's going to earn every single penny of it. He's going to be a great offensive coordinator. Yeah. He's proved his worth at Oklahoma, and he'll prove it here at WVU too as well.
Yeah. Well, I said you look at their team, and as you watch through the year, they did lose some games, but for the most part, it really wasn't a defensive problem, and heard a lot of good things about him, and you've seen his product on the field. So, yeah, I think he's going to be I think that's a great hire right there. And
it is. And the game I remember in particular, having lived down in the SEC territory, is what they did to Alabama when Alabama went out to Norman. Held them to 3 points. And if you can do that against Alabama, hats off to you, buddy. And it's just a tribute to his defensive mindset. And given the right players and the right personnel, I think he'll be able to accomplish similar things in Morgantown.
Yeah, be exciting to see. Hey, Frank,
Sure.
I hate to interrupt and change jump off the rails here just for a second, but just learned that Steve Slayton made it into the College Football Hall of Fame today. I thought we might want to mention that.
That's wonderful.
Yep, that's good news. And what a surprise. Nick Saban made it the first time.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was shocked.
Yeah, but the downside news, Mickey, you mentioned Jim Carlin. Jim didn't make it this year, and so he was on the ballot. There were 4 coaches that were picked, and I'm trying to think of the others that were. Oh, it was Urban Meyer. I mean, two of the 4. I mean, are legends. Urban Meyer and Nick. I mean, it's just amazing. But I think hopefully they'll keep on trying with Jim Carlin, who was your coach, Mick, and we'll just keep our fingers crossed on that. So no, that not an interruption at all. That's important. Should have said that earlier. One of the things we want to do, and we've all, by the way, Mickey and Greg and I have had conversations, not together, but with each other, as we put up looking at the portal information here. This is a flash. This is not a usual year. This is more like what Indiana went through last year and what North Carolina with Belichick is going through this year. It's a call it reconstruction, call it put Humpty Dumpty back on the wall, whatever. And so the point we would make here is that ordinarily we would look at portal rankings and ratings, et cetera, and basically view that in relationship to how other schools are doing and how our school is doing compared to last year. That's not a good thing to do, because remember, as Mickey said, was it a month and a couple days, he had to hit the ground running. All schools that had more stable programs were clearly way ahead. And so what's going to happen here is the way it always happens, and that is spring practice is going to be huge. The spring game is going to be really huge. There's going to be a sifting and sorting. We'll know a lot more about this team, what it's going to look like in the fall, after the spring game, after they go through the second round of the portal ins and out. And I want you to bring your attention to what Chris Anderson reported just a couple days ago. It's the bottom left. It looks like WVU is going to have a roster of up to 93 players. They've got 91 now. That includes the freshmen who have been recruited. It includes the 25 transfers. 22 freshmen, 44 who are already on scholarships in the program and who didn't leave. And then you've got the 25 as of today. I think it's up to date, 25 portal guys. And so the NCAA has a limit of 105. But I think what is important, and I'm going to stop talking here with this last point, it would be a mistake, I think, to look at West Virginia in terms of where it's ranked nationally. I think it's more important to take the longer view. Let's see what happens when these guys come in and start competing with each other, and let's see what emerges. There's some really interesting guys on that list. But the other thing there is one more thing that Greg and I talked about. Those people who look at on3.com, which is the gold standard, their rankings are not, for the most part, rankings that most people think about when they hear the word ranking. It's not ranking one school against the other. The way their formula works is they evaluate all the players who left the school via the portal, each one, and then they add it up, and they evaluate all the guys coming in, each one, and then add it up, and then they basically subtract. So what it is it's an evaluation of how well or how not so well teams have done in terms of replacing the players they've lost. Then what they do is they rank them nationally. So that Texas Tech now is number one. So what that means is Texas Tech has done the best job in the country of replacing the players they lost. And as you might expect, a big factor as to why in the middle column, WVU's national ranking is so low, 62 out of 70, is that the players that WVU lost went very fast because they're good players. And so now the process begins of replacing them. So it's really important to understand that from the point of view of ranking. That's what the ranking is. So with that as background, your comments, start with Greg and then Mickey about what you see on that. Any other comments you want to make, but maybe even specifically players you're looking at.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to know that, and you and I talked about it the other day. That ranking is more like it's like a grade card. It's not me against you, but it's my program has done this. We lost this many. We got this many. This is our score right now. So that's our grade for the time period. It's not I'm that much better than I did that much better than Frank's team did, but this is my report card. And like you said, we lost players early, and we lost some really, really good players early with Latham and Trotter and some of those guys, Donaldson leaving. Those are pretty lofty players and high ranking players. So, that's going to be a quick shot on our grade card right off the bat when you lose really good people. And, you start bringing them in, of course, the grade's going to start going up some, you hope, and based on what you're getting coming in. And, I think we learned from last year, I mean, we're being talking heads ourselves, but when you listen to folks talking about these people that are coming in and all that, I think we have a tendency to look and say, oh, we got this guy from Ohio State, or we got this guy from Michigan. And you put them up there on a pedestal. I think we learned from last year that no matter what people say, it depends on what they do once they get here. And, we had a lot of high hopes, especially in our defensive secondary this past year with some of the transfers we had coming in, and it didn't really pan out too well. And so I think we learned a little bit from that. So I kind of don't look at where they're coming from so much as what position they play. Maybe if you can look at stats from what they how they performed prior to, gives you a little bit better take on what you're getting. And but like I said, I don't think we know until you actually see them out there on the field with the pads on and playing the games. And again, I think we learned a nice lesson from last year, and hopefully, like I said, it looks like Rich has hit the ground running and is starting to bring him in. And he's got the good thing about him, you have to think, is that, he's been around enough and has enough connections in, all parts of the country to where he'll be able to attract some players and places of need for our team. And I'm sure he's evaluated that strongly already, knows where we need help. And I think that's what he's going after. So, Mickey, I'll let you have a shot at it, not take up all the time.
Well, Greg, you make some very good points there, and I agree with you 100%. My overall response, Frank, would be preseason rankings, spankings. All these guys should be spanked. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. These guys are making preseason projections, and you call it the gold standard. Well, where was the gold standard when Arizona State University ended up playing for the Big 12 championship, when SMU ended up playing for the ACC championship? These guys sit around and prognosticate based on, some data that they've collected. Well, data doesn't tell you the entire story. There's an old story about an accountant. An accountant will tell you every detailed piece of information you want to know, and 99% of it is totally useless. So here's where I'm coming from. I think Rodriguez has done one heck of a job in filling the roster to the best of his ability in the 33 days or so. And I look at it on a individual player-by-player basis. For example, we lose Donaldson to Ohio State. What does he do? He goes out and gets Ty Edwards from Northern Illinois, 6'4", 240 pounds. Had a hell of a game against Notre Dame last year, rushed for more than 1,000 yards. We'll probably end up making more of a mark at WVU than Donaldson did. So, from a running back perspective, I think we improved in that area. Everybody knows the most help we need is in the defensive secondary. So, like a magician pulling a rabbit out of his hat, first of all, Rich Rod brings Fred Perry with him from Jack State. And then he goes out and he gets this kid, Michael Coates, to play in the defensive secondary. Now, Michael Coates was at Nevada. And people say, Nevada, big deal. But you know what? We beat out Ole Miss. Ole Miss in the SEC was trying to get this kid to come play for them. And Rich Rod was able to convince him to come play for WVU instead. The guy that I'm most impressed with on the field is Cam Vaughn, that he also brought with him from Jack State, wide receiver. He caught 48 passes for 804 yards last season. And, you know, I think he's got the potential to be a consensus All-American. I think that kid's going to do great. A lot of people have concern over the integrity and the strength of the offensive line and the fact that we did lose a lot. However, look what he's done. This kid, Tykeest Crawford, that he brought in, just recently announced, from UCLA, from the Big Ten, 6'5", 324 pounds. Plus, he got the young Bear kid, and the other kid that was playing at NC State is coming back home. Played up in Parkersburg. He's coming back home to WVU. So, I mean, when you look at these individual players on a case-by-case basis, I don't see a single situation where we're going to be any worse off. In fact, I think we're going to be better off in most of these positions. Not to mention two last things, and then I'll be quiet here. We now have 5 quarterbacks on the roster. And even though he's assured Nico Marchio that, you know, he's good and he's staying at WVU, but he's brought in some serious competition, a couple of which have played at the sophomore, junior level in the Big Four schools. So they'll be pressing him. The competition is good at any position, but particularly at the quarterback position. And then lastly, let me finish off my tirade here with, I think, the most impressive addition when you take a look at the entire picture is Chuck Lilly. As I mentioned before, today's college football game today is totally different. It's more of a business, and you have to have a sound business manager. Chuck Lilly did such a great job at Oklahoma managing their team as a GM. So you take the pressure off of Rich Rod. He doesn't have to be concerned as much about NIL and the portal and how much money do we have to spend and how much is going to be allocated to each of these kids. He can let Chuck Lilly take care of that, and he can concentrate on being the CEO of the team while Chuck shows, you know, his capabilities as the CFO of the team. And as far as the question goes about an offensive coordinator, I think Rich Rod will probably give it a shot himself this first year and call the plays himself. That's it from my end, guys. Are you still with me?
Yep, I was trying to read the comment there. Since I got sick, my eyesight's a little bit off.
There it is. Put it back up.
What's it say?
Yeah. Frank, you read the comment, and maybe.
Yeah, it's just Timothy Green agreeing with the comment that Mark made, that whether it's a 5-star or 1-star, it doesn't matter. It's how the kids plays, how much heart they have.
Yep.
Mickey, I agree with everything you said, but I would defend the fact that operation like on3.com, they do an excellent job, and you can't, from my perspective, you just can't dismiss that and say it's not relevant. So I would agree that the thing that I think is really important, and it goes back to what a lot of the fans are saying, is bring these kids in, give them a chance to show what they can do, and then it'll sift and sort itself, and the players will come out, and you will know who the starters are going to be. This kid from LSU is going to give Nico a lot of competition. There's no question, and there may be more. There are always surprises. But I think in a world where opinions seem to reign supreme, I think it also is important to look at bona fide analyses and then basically sift and sort that. Not that that's not necessarily truth. There's nothing that you can say is truthful. But it's not a preseason prediction by any stretch of the imagination. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
Yep.
Greg, I think we're ready to bring in Mr. Cliff. Greg.
Yep. Been looking forward to this, Frank. I'll give you the honor to introduce him if you'd like to. And we're anxious to hear from you. This is going to be fun.
Well, there he is. Cliff. Hey, Cliff. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah. People who, this is the 3rd time Cliff's with us, and we have always benefited every time you've been here, and we're looking forward to tonight. Cliff, you'll do a much better job, obviously, than I will in terms of explaining to the audience if they haven't experienced you before, what you're doing now with these high school kids and the great contributions you're making in a very, very, very complex environment that when I talk with players and they talk about when they were in high school, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I mean, I didn't realize, I know what I was dealing with, but not then. So, Cliff, say a few words about yourself, and then we'll dive into the guys that you're helping find schools for, and you've helped them find schools. And then we want to get your thoughts later in the show about what you think about revenue sharing and what the future of this landscape is going to look like.
Very good. First off, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
And I'd like to say, Greg, good to see you. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
I followed you on Facebook as you went through all that. Good to see you.
I appreciate it.
What I do, I advise a lot of kids that are coming out of high school and that are even in college on how this process works. I do my very best never to pick the school for them. What I do is I try to find out what scheme they fit in the best, what that room looks like, their position room, who the coach is, what the development looks like. Certainly, a part of it is what the NIL package looks like. And then I take them all the way through to the point that after they've signed and getting their money, I work with the company, and I'll work with any company. One that I do work with, they put them on a budget. They get their money invested. They get it in retirement accounts. I help them buy their first cars. There is almost no limit to what I have found myself doing with these guys. And the thing is, this process comes on so quick, and they've never done it before. And the parents really, understandably don't know what to do. And I've done it for a couple of years now, so I've gotten pretty accustomed to what happens. And I just try to walk them through and navigate this whole space. And there are an amazing amount of moving parts. Like on any day, I'm at my brother's house right now. I still haven't made it home today, and I left at 8:00 in the morning. And so any day is nonstop. I really thought that January would slow down some, but it has not. So, but the gist of it is I try to help the kid get through this process and get themselves in the best position possible.
You had a big get recently when one of your actually I think he's a 5-star signed with Michigan. Why don't you? I don't know how much you can talk about this, and maybe I introduced something that you can't talk about.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
Can't talk about contracts and things like that.
Sure.
Kind of tell you what that process looked like. So he's a 5-star. He was #1 rated linebacker in the country, and he and I traveled about 30,000 miles together this year. And we went to a lot of games in person. We went to 2 at Michigan. We were all over the country. We were everywhere. He's a phenomenal kid. I talk to him every day still. Helped him purchase his car. He got a very good package, and he's a very smart, responsible kid, and other kids are out buying $150,000, $200,000 cars, and he bought himself a brand new but very nice all-wheel drive hybrid Camry, and I'm very proud of him for how responsible he is. A kid like that is just a pleasure to work with. So the way we looked at Michigan, and like you said, it changes so quickly. So one of the things we looked at was, what defensive scheme does he fit in the best? And Michigan's defensive scheme just fit him perfect as a wheel linebacker. There was an opening to where he can get on the field early. And it's really hard to find a program that big that as a freshman you can get on the field. And we felt like he's got a really good chance at that. Their defensive coordinator, the best defensive coordinator probably in college football, Wink Martindale. He was great. Although he is interviewing for the Falcons defensive coordinator job next week. So that's how quickly this stuff changes. And the position coach, Coach BJ, is awesome. He's developed a lot of NFL linebackers. Nathaniel's brother, Jeremiah, plays for the Cleveland Browns. He's an all-pro middle linebacker for them. So he has a really good – Nathaniel has a really good shot, really good, to be a first or second round pick. So the development piece for him was a big reason why we picked Michigan. Their staff was incredible. Their GM is an awesome guy. I got to know him very well. And it was just it was a really good fit. And I will tell you that the decision was made about midnight the night before signing day. So I got on an airplane going to his signing up in Washington, D.C., and I truly didn't know who he was going to pick when I landed the next day. So these things do come down to the wire, and his did, and it was a good pick. He loves it up there. He's not used to the cold yet, but he'll get used to it. And so it's just a real neat process. Like with him, we went up to the Oregon game and we went up to the USC game. And on both games, we got to go out to the M seconds before kickoff and let the crowd see him. And so they did a real good job recruiting him, and they wanted him really bad, and it was evident. And that's how we picked that school. And they did put together a good package for him. They really wanted him. So I had two guys go up to Michigan, so that worked out well. And they're a great school. They're trending up. They somehow won the ball games this year without a quarterback. So and it was all defense based. So that was really good. And then right before signing day, they beat Ohio State, which was big. And then they brought in Underwood, the number one player in the country, to quarterback. And all those things played a piece in getting him there. So that's how that deal worked. But it was a busy process. And during the time of doing that, I had a bunch of other guys I was working with and taking on visits. And I traveled, I counted up right at 50,000 miles last year going on visits with kids. So it was it's pretty wild.
You've got kids looking at, I know, Miami, but Florida State, and several, as I recall, doing the background research, Cliff, Marshall as well, correct?
Yeah, we got a kid to Marshall this year, and he'll be a good one, Andrew Dudley. He was the starting center at IMG, and it's not common to get a starting lineman from IMG to Marshall, and but I got to talk with Tony Gibson, and we're both from Boone County, so there was a connection there, and he brought in Andrew, and then I tried to help with the quarterback situation too. That didn't work out, but he's got a couple good ones on campus, so that was good. I think Tony will do well there. And I will say, and obviously, I'm from West Virginia, so anytime I can help the state, I want to do that. And I will tell you, since Rodriguez has taken over, I've started hearing West Virginia more. Like I told you, I think our first show, I didn't really hear their name much, but it is getting out there. And a lot of the kids I work with, especially up in the Northeast, the Pennsylvania, the Ohio, the Michigan area, I'm hearing their name more and more. And, Coach Rodriguez is a fantastic recruiter. Everybody remembers the type of kids he was bringing in the last time he was there. So I do think that will be impactful on WVU's recruiting.
Great. A question that's more curiosity. You've got Bill Belichick, obviously a Super Bowl and a future Hall of Famer, at North Carolina, which many thought was a very odd move to go to college. What difference does a name like that make? Are you hearing more about North Carolina from kids now because of Belichick, or doesn't that play in?
It does. It plays in heavily, and it's almost like when Deion Sanders went to Colorado. It's not exactly the same, but it is it's getting pretty close. So a hot name like that is always going to attract attention, and he's going to get the benefit of the doubt, but it's going to be one of those things that he'll have to perform.
Mhm.
Sometimes, a lot of times, college coaches do not transition well to the NFL, and it's not a guarantee that NFL coaches are going to transition well to college. And the big part of that is the recruiting aspect of it. And the NFL guys are not really used to that. And it just depends on what they put into it. But I hear his name quite commonly now. And I know some guys that I have that North Carolina probably wouldn't have had a very good chance with, it now is in the running.
Hmm.
So,
Great.
and I tell you this, I mentioned Dion's name. I took 2 kids to Colorado that are there. And now, I'm sure you've seen in the news nonstop about the Cowboy connection with Dion,
Yeah.
which, that's a tough pill to swallow in the first week that the kids get on campus. And, I talked to Colorado today, and everything is just moving along like nothing's going on. And I hope that is the case. But I will tell you that he, in November, looked me dead in the eye and gave me a 15-minute answer, because I flat out asked him in his office. We sat there and talked around an hour, and I asked him if he was leaving, and he gave me about a 15-minute answer on how he definitely wasn't leaving. And he made me a bet that I wish we'd have got to shook hands on at this point. He bet me that everything in his checking account against everything in my checking account, that he would be there longer than the kids were. So, I definitely knew he was a hot commodity and was going to have his name was going to be associated with almost any opening in college football and potentially the NFL. I did not consider that it would be the Cowboys, and I thought he would stay for a lot of the other college jobs, because he is very happy there, and I hope he does stay. But the Cowboys be hard to turn down.
Yeah, I was going to say that 15-minute denial means he's leaving. He's going somewhere. You never saw didn't see the Cowboys coming, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I want to ask you.
That denial was back in November. I have not spoke with him since this came up, so I don't think I would get an answer at this point.
You mentioned the fact that you hear more, since Rodriguez has landed at WVU, you hear WVU more, which would indicate that it's not necessarily all about, money and that sort of thing. But I'm just curious to know when these kids start talking to these programs, is there, this may be out of line, but is there a banner about, so-and-so offered me this, or this? Is it a bargaining chip that they use? Or is there a bargaining chip there where they say, WU offered me, $10,000 a year or whatever, can you do that or better? It doesn't work that way. I'm just curious to know if that's how it all works. It's such a different world for us old heads trying to figure all this out.
So, my guys don't even know what my other guys get. And so you can't talk about the contracts.
Right.
And they play it pretty close to the vest. I'm around a lot of kids that are getting really, really good offers. And they may say that, they made me a good offer, but typically they're not telling each other what that offer is. So now do some tell, everything, but it's one of those things that's really not talked about that much. And some of them also, especially some of the parents, may say inflated numbers compared to what they're really going to get. And so, because here's how you got to look at it. So they're all out. It's a very individual type of thing. And so they don't want to give those numbers because they
Right.
don't want somebody else to go get them.
Right. Right. And I would think too, it would make it tough if you have, say you got two linemen coming in and you know, you've offered this one lineman is going to get this much or this package. You don't want that lineman, the other lineman knowing what this lineman got. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
could cause.
No, they try to, they everyone does a pretty good job about just keeping that private. And so, and you know, now that's what makes my job very hard is none of this is published.
Right.
So the only way I know what kids are getting is by, you know, talking to staffs at schools. And I've gotten to know a lot of them good enough that I know they know,
Right.
like, you know, one school knows what the other guy is pretty much getting. And so then they'll talk about it. And so that's where I get a lot of ranges from is that. And then basically it is, you know, you get your best offers from a school that really, really likes you and that needs you for a position. So a position of need, and then just depending on how much money the school has to offer is, you know, where that comes from and what they're trying to do. You know, if you've got a school that's on top, they're not necessarily in the position where they have to pay as much as somebody trying to get on top.
Right. Right. Can you see too? I know we talk a lot about this, and you're a lot closer to it than any of us are. But you know, we talk often about, you know, the rich getting richer, and you know, the power schools with the money able to continue to stay on top because they have all the money. Do you see a wide gap there still? I mean, from a West Virginia perspective, it's kind of concerning because we obviously don't have the resources that a lot of these other schools do. And I'm just wondering if you see that difference in the fruits.
So you know, you probably have 15 to close to 20 schools that have a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
And then you get into that next tier of schools and they're all pretty close. So, but that very top echelon, yeah, I can see them continuing to pull away, and we can talk about it when we talk about revenue sharing and the agreement and all that. And there's certainly not a let up in that, and they have no intentions of backing down. They're doubling down. So, for instance, Ohio State probably has one of the very best rosters ever assembled. And so that'll be something that, you know, they're not going to back off that. And if they go win this national championship, they may not go as hard as they did last year, but they went hard enough and put a roster together that once they started playing ball, I mean, you could just see the amount of talent that's on the field. So, and then because they've done that, you know, the other Big Ten schools are going to try to have to compete with that. And then the SEC is going to say, well, hell no, we're not giving up being kings of college football. And so then they're going to have to go compete with that too. And that's where that top, you know, very top echelon is really doubling down. So, and you know, you guys were talking about the recruiting process and the ranking process. I was listening before I came on, and Steve Wilfong is a buddy of mine, and he does a big part of On Three, the rankings, and he does a show about it and all that. Very, very knowledgeable guy. So if you're a 3-star, you're a real variable. They don't know really how good you can be, but they know you're good. Now, 4-star is typically a guy that might be a little faster, might be a little taller, might be a little stronger, but you don't know how that 3-star is going to develop 18, 19, 20 years old. So that's where a big variable comes in. So if you've got like a bunch of 3-stars, that's pretty good. You don't necessarily want to have a class full of 2-stars or unrated. But even after saying all that, a lot of these kids are really on the camp circuit, the rival circuit, the Under Armour circuit. They're hitting all these camps.
Yeah.
And so if you're the kid out there that everybody's seeing all the time, well, you got a better chance of getting a better rating because you're directly in front of them. But if you have a 3-star kid from a small school in West Virginia or a small school in Mississippi or Alabama or something like that, that's not in the limelight, and he's rated a 3-star, he could be, an upper level 4-star. And then you take in the piece, if you're not at a big program, you probably don't have great nutrition. You probably don't have the same weightlifting and training that a lot of these big schools do. And so that might cause you to be a 3-star. Well, then you come to a school, like WVU, you get your nutrition, you get your training, and all of a sudden you blossom, and you guys have seen that happen tons of times. And that's one of the ways where a 3-star, they're like, oh, he was just a 3-star, he was underrated. Well, he got into a place to where they were meeting all his needs to get him there, and then he blossomed. And a lot of times that's what happens.
Mm. Great explanation.
Yeah, no question. Yeah. And when you, I have a million questions about this, how all this works, but do the kids come and do they come to you and say, help me as the parents? I mean, I would think that, having a kid that was capable of playing and that sort of thing, it would be overwhelming to have to go through this process and figure out, the best move for the kid, the best move for the family, and all that. I would think your job, trying to keep up with all the rules, regulations, and how it all works would be overwhelming. But do they come to you and say, help me? Or how does all that unfold?
So it's mostly all word of mouth. And then like once they know who you've got and they see who you've got, they'll say, well, I'm very similar to that guy, or I want what that guy got. And so I get calls and texts. Most of the people that reach out to me, they reach out through Twitter. And I do my very best to answer every one of them. But on any day, I'll have 10 highlight videos that people send and, want me to watch them. And one of the things that a lot of kids always want is they'll say, help me get recruited, help me get a scholarship. That's tough. Now, I try to use my network as much as possible to help as many people as I can. And there's been multiple kids that, had no D1 offers, and I was able to work with them and get them in a good spot and get them in front of people. And I've never even met the kid. I try to help as very best that I can. But, only being one person doing this, and I am starting to bring in help, I can really work with about, 25 to 30 kids. And then after that, and that's what I'm doing now, is starting to bring in some help for that, because the reason I got into this, I wanted to help them. So I have to try to help I want to try to help everybody the very best that I can and explain this process. So that is what we're developing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Cliff, I had a couple questions for you. I just relocated from Georgia. I lived in Atlanta, up to West Virginia here. But in the last couple of years in the Atlanta area, and particularly south of Atlanta, there were a number of high schools that got heavily into NIL at the high school level, to the extent that the Georgia state legislature actually passed some legislation last year that would penalize high schools for awarding NIL money to high school players beyond a certain level. Do you get involved with kids at the high school level at all? And how predominant is that in today's environment? Or are you familiar with that at all?
Yeah. So have you gotten to go on some of these Georgia high school campuses to see these schools they have?
I have. Yeah. It's almost like Division II, at least. Some of them
Yeah.
Division One.
I went up to the Buford Carrollton playoff game, and I went with one of my guys, London Merritt. We went and watched Juju, and then I've got another kid up there, Koali Fielder, and we went and watched those guys play. I was shocked at what that campus looked like. So I'm going to say this, and I'm going to leave it at this. I get a lot of calls from Georgia high schools wanting my guys to transfer, and I avoid it. It is it's one of those things that they're trying to emulate. Some schools are trying to emulate. Neither one of those schools I just mentioned are one of them. I just went to their game. But some of these schools are trying to emulate what's going on in college. And some of it's shocking on what they're willing to do to get a guy. So I avoid it. I do not mess with that.
Yeah, I was curious about that, your involvement in that. Excuse me, I got a little bit of a chest cold going on here. You know, from a then and now perspective, the name of our show, you know, the way I look at that at the high school level, it's not too much different than back when I played high school football and we competed against, let me take a school you'll be familiar with, East Bank, for example. You remember East Bank High School?
Yep.
We were a AA at Mount Hope, and they were AAA. And we played them every year. And it was a known fact throughout all southern West Virginia that the way they attracted the best players to East Bank was they gave their moms and dads jobs to move to that town. And, I think of that movie Blue Chip that was a survey of what used to go on, I guess, behind the scenes at both the high school and the college level. And now today it's all out in the open. I have another question for you also. With the revenue sharing agreement about to go into effect here, I've read some articles that kind of indicate, not unlike the salary caps in the Major League Baseball system, that a lot of schools know they have X amount of money to spend. And as you mentioned earlier, they're doubling. A lot of schools are doubling down right now. You see a lot of colleges spending the lion's share of the money that they have to spend right now before all the new regulations go into effect.
So these guys, they're some of the smartest business people in the country. And some of these guys running these collectives are incredibly smart, and they are associated with really big companies. So the collectives, you know, just for people that don't know, the collective is a group of boosters that give money, and then that money right now is used to pay NIL, name, image, likeness, to the players. So part of this settlement that they're working on, they're wanting those collectives to go away and everything to come from the schools. That is not likely to happen, because if you have waited 40 years to be able to put in money to get players, you don't want to go back to building libraries. So what's going to happen? This is what's going to happen. Is they're going to max out the salary cap, and these collective deals then are going to put deals together for branding type deals, endorsements that they're going to pay players to advertise for companies. For instance, I'm not going to say the school or the player, but I will say the player is a freshman this year. He just got $50,000 for his jersey sales. So that's just for selling his jerseys. So that goes back to this top echelon. they're very smart. And the second that they make rules, it's going to take about 10 minutes and they're going to figure out how to kind of skirt that. So, and that's going to be one of the ways, let's say you work for, this oil company or this tire company or this clothing brand. Instead of necessarily giving that money you're going to give to the collective, now you'll just get that guy to advertise for you and you give it to him that way and you will get something back out of it.
Yeah.
So, and so I think probably some of the top schools I think are going to be, if the salary cap they're thinking it's going to be 20.5 million, 20.5 million. So I think some of these schools will be approaching the mid 30s on total expenditures, counting the salary, what is in the salary cap. And I'll be more surprised if that doesn't happen than if it does.
Yeah.
Bobby Pruitt was ahead of his time.
Who's that?
Yeah. That's when I was at school during that time. So I'm not going to say anything else.
Well, I think a lot of them were ahead of their time. We just didn't know about it.
Yeah, for sure. But, there's difference in getting in the SEC, the joke was getting a poke of cash and that might be $7,500. And that doesn't go real far now. So it's substantial, and you see the deals and things. And I mean, it's real money. It's real money that a lot of these kids are getting. And if they play it right, it's life-changing money. Like this really suits my needs. If this was checkers, I'd be doing it if I could help guys. So I get accused and online and a lot of things as one of the people that's ruined college football. But here's the thing. If you can take somebody and their gift is to play football and they're going to get paid a lot for it, and if they're responsible with it and they invest it and they put it in, this will change their lives. And nobody ever complains about the 15-year-old kid that's really smart and sets up some home business or something like that and does really well. This is just what, everybody has different gifts. So, but the money is real. And it's, if you can put that type of money up at a young age, then you're doing pretty well and get out with a degree and all that stuff. So,
you make a good point there. A 20-year-old kid has the opportunity to create generational wealth because of these programs. I mean, not only for himself, but for his descendants as well. I read an article the other day that was talking about the quarterback Ewers from Texas perhaps not declaring for the NFL draft because of the rookie salary caps. He'd have to take a pay cut.
Yeah. Yep. That's true.
It's almost ludicrous when things get to that point. This coming from, a guy that played 55 years ago, that, if Bob Zatelli and I, who we've had on the program, if we got a job with Chico's Dairy in Morgantown and went and delivered some milk on Saturday morning, and somebody slipped us $100, we thought we were doing really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it had been cold out and snowing and someone had given you a jacket, they could have gotten in trouble. And now,
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It some of it is absurd, but then you really look and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you often hear people, complaining about, this celebrity making this amount of money or this person making this amount of money, the ball player or whatever. But, it's entertainment business and people are willing to pay for it, and whatever they're willing to pay, there's no reason why these kids shouldn't benefit. I mean, that's their service. And, if they're good at it, they deserve to be paid. And I just I never look at the amount so much as just where they're going. I'm more concerned about all the good players going to the same places,
Well, and here's the thing. There's here's it used to be all athletic talent, but there's so many good trainers and things now that really you get a lot of good players. So it's not like it was 30 years ago when you could either run a 4.4 or not. Or, so there's so many good trainers now, and a lot of these kids that love it, they really get developed well. So the player pool is big, so they're and like you're seeing a lot of parity in college football now. And part of that is because teams can't park, 2 5-star quarterbacks on the bench. They're going to go somewhere and get paid and play now.
That's right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. You made a really good point, Cliff, a number of really good points. But the point you made earlier about you put a rule in place and 10 minutes later they'll figure out a way around it. We know that's true. I mean, it's not just college football. It's everywhere in all fields. But what we have in this situation is that there are very few rules, and it's not because the NCAA doesn't want to impose rules, because that's what the NCAA does. They're very rule-based. But there is really not a lot of appetite, particularly with the major conferences, of having the NCAA take responsibility for that domain. So it ends up to be more like the Wild West. And so we've said this on this show forever, is that there are a number of pathways to change. One is through the institution. One is through institutions or organizations like the NCAA. But the other is the lawsuit. And that's where we're getting change in major college sports. It's not coming from congressional regulation. It's basically coming through the pathway of lawsuits. You think about the Austin, the former running back of West Virginia. He was involved, the lead plaintiff in a lawsuit that has changed the landscape.
It's pretty much what put all this in motion.
Exactly. And so when you have lawsuits being the primary pathway to change, not regulation or the organizations responsible, then you're going to have exactly what we're experiencing, and it's Katie bar the door. And then when you try to, because there's so much money involved in this, then when you try to impose rules, subversion of rules is a way of life. That's time immemorial. We can find a way around this, and people do. So, but that's what makes your role so important, because obviously you have a lot of integrity, and your client base, your primary concern is for those kids. Mm-hmm. And so that's really important. I'm looking at the clock. Any final questions, guys, before we shift to a few words about basketball? Both the men and women are playing tonight. And then we'll come back to Cliff and see if he has any final comments. Any final questions, Greg or Mick?
I've got a million of them, but I'll hold off till the next time. I know we're going to have him back on again.
We got to.
Yeah.
Finger on the pulse. He's got the finger on the pulse. Yeah. Mick?
Nothing else here. No, I got mine.
Great. This is, one of the things we like to do on this show is educate, Cliff, not just bloviate. And you really help us understand something that's beyond our pay grade, and we don't get paid. So, but the fact of the matter is, it's any final comments on from you in terms of where you see this thing going, your reflections on when you started this and where you are now, any parting observations?
So I'll say that last November, the November before last, November of 23, with the Tennessee, Virginia court case, that changed everything. That opened it up to where now you couldn't talk about NIL before you got on campus before, and that made it be more of a this is what this school's giving and this is what this school's giving. And then this July, it's all about to change again, and just as much. So no one really knows what's going to happen with that. And then I think there's going to be a big compromise, and I don't know how much the NCAA is going to enforce, because they do not want the SEC and the Big Ten to go do their own thing.
That's right. The big bad wolf. One of the things that's really interesting, and I was reading an article today, is that this thing hasn't turned out called the college football playoff the way the SEC had it scripted, which goes to show you not even the SEC that considers themselves the king of the hill can control what is inherently uncontrollable. It really is. Who would have thought Notre Dame would have a chance? And as someone was telling me today, a guy wrote an article I read. He said, and Greg and I were talking about it before the show, if Ohio State wins this thing, they got to split the money. Guess what Notre Dame doesn't have to do?
Keep it all. They keep it all.
And I'll tell you this before we go. I was at Notre Dame this year at a game, and I got to be around. They are serious. They are embracing this.
Oh, that's great. I mean, that's really
Very
because there were a lot of people, including myself, that said, "Oh, read the history books. Have a picture of Lou Holtz on your wall next to Newt Rockne, because Notre Dame's never going to be relevant again." And for a long time, they acted that way.
Well, but, and they didn't want to participate in it, and they kind of thought they were above it. And I tell you what happened, and this was real. They lost the opening game to Marshall, and they said Marshall's got 23 transfers or whatever it was. We got to do this, and that's when the script flipped.
Yep. Isn't that important? Thank you so much, Cliff. As always, wonderful. You, and as Greg said, we got to have you back again. It's like, guys, I feel like I should get credit for this. Do you do you issue transcripts, Hill University? Because
no, listen, I love talking to you guys. It's always a good time. The good thing for your fans to know is I'm hearing WVU's name a whole lot more this recruiting process than I did last, and some of the guys that are saying the name are really good players. So
that's fantastic.
That's to hear that.
We'll be in touch, Cliff. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Wow.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. He is so knowledgeable. What a find to be able to have. I'm just so pleased every time we call him, guys. He says yes.
Yeah.
Great guy.
You know he's got to be busy because, man, alive, he's putting players out there left and right, and that's pretty good stuff. And it's interesting to me to hear how it all works. I think most people have a kind of maybe a skewed impression of how all this unfolds and the money and all that. And it's nice to hear from somebody on the inside that actually knows what's going on and how it all works.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Coach Christ, let's talk a bit about basketball. We didn't have a chance to do it last week, and you're the basketball coach. I think you're watching the men's game, right?
Yep. I've been flipping around watching the women.
Great.
Playing, so I've been watching them a little bit.
give us your thumbnail of how you size up both teams, starting with the men.
Well, I think the men, playing a little short-handed, but I think he's doing a good job of these guys. I'm just watching them now. They jump out on Houston here real quick, but they play with such intensity and play really good defense. He's got some talent, and it's not a little bit different what it was last year. You feel like we're going to be competitive no matter what. I know a lot of people were disappointed after the Arizona game, but a couple of things on that game. One, Arizona's a really, really good basketball team and has improved a lot since the beginning of the season. And, I think a couple of things got exposed on our team, and I think he's obviously going to work out. Our off the ball defense was kind of weak against Arizona. Saw a big improvement the following game against Colorado. But Arizona exposed some things there defensively. But I think the biggest part is just health-wise right now. I think we got some players hurt, and he's working around that, and he's getting some production from some kids that we hadn't heard of initially. I know a freshman, and I forget his name now, but stepped out against Colorado and really played a good game. So I think this men's team has some promise, and I think they're going to get better and better as the year goes on. I think we're already seeing some improvement from them game after game after game, even though we did lose the Arizona game. I think they're getting better and better as he gets his rotation down and that sort of thing. So pretty impressed with this men's team. I think they're exciting to watch, fun to watch. And
go ahead. I was going to say that Arizona, not the first one where they won in the tournament, but the second one, they just, you and I talked about it. They They were outshot. They were out
No,
rebounded. Arizona had more second chance points, more
yeah,
points in the paint, more points on turnovers, more bench points. But then they flipped that right around the next time. And the thing is, we were talking earlier about the portal. When I saw the guys he was bringing in, the two guys from Illinois, and then the guard from from Oklahoma State, et cetera, he was really quite competitive in the portal, and he needed to be. And
yeah.
it's amazing to me that, and losing DeFreeze,
Yeah.
and still chugging. But go ahead with the women, and they're
Well,
ahead now.
well, yeah. I was going to say about the men there before too. They come out. Me and another guy was talking about the game with Arizona coming up and how it was one of those games that you worry about because you have a big win or two, you win another game at home, everything is rolling, and you kind of it seems like it never fails. You kind of have a lull, and it just seemed like we come out with that night with no energy. Like I said, we got out rebounded, we got out shot. I mean, just every facet of the game we got beat in, and it just seemed like we were just a step behind all night long. It was just it's just natural. You have that letdown, at some point. And even DeVries addressed that and said, you got to realize we have X number of conference games at home or away. And he said, it's tough every night to come out here with intensity and emotion and that sort of thing. And they really liked that against Arizona. You could see it. And again, on top of that, Arizona shot the lights out that night. They didn't, they didn't miss. It seemed like, and we just couldn't hang that night. That's just one of them nights. The women's team, and I've got to watch them some. I readily admit I don't watch a lot of women's basketball, but I have watched them several times. And like you said, they have come back and taken the lead tonight. They are fun to watch too. They just they defend you all over the court, and they get up and down the floor. Got again talent, and we've talked about how comfortable we are with these coaches that we have now. These two basketball coaches are dynamic, and I think this women's team is fun to watch as well. And I think somebody is out now by 9. So they were trailing by 8 or 9 when I was watching them, but they're fun to watch too. And they like I said, they get after you on defense, and I think that's where their success lies is that pressure all over the floor. And again, fun to watch. If you like basketball, that's the kind you like to watch.
Yeah, Mick, it's exciting to see these guys and women both have such success. And I saw something today, which gets me excited too, is that it's a month away from the opening of the WVU baseball season. I got tired of watching the major leagues, but I've really gotten psyched over watching WVU baseball. And, we all complain about the subscription costs and so on, but one of the real values of ESPN Plus is they carry almost a lot of the games, particularly the Big 12 games, home and away. So if you subscribe, you can watch the Mountaineers, not with a number of the preseason games, but the Pitt. They'll be playing Pitt, Penn State, Ohio State, and the Big 12. It's exciting. So it fills in that gap between now and the beginning of the football season.
What I like about the idea of it is that if it's baseball season, it means spring is just around the corner. That's what I like about that. I
That's
like
right.
Baseball too. Yeah, but it just one into the other. But yeah, you mentioned our baseball team, and that's I think something else that people are going to be looking forward to the new coach and everything, and how how we fare there. And our program really has jumped by leaps and bounds. The baseball program has, and I think it's going to be exciting to watch, see how that goes. And if the coaching hires are any indication, hopefully this next man up is going to be as good as the last one.
Yeah, I want to look at this before we sign off. Let me see. Houston's up by 13. It's 21-18.
They outscored us. We were up 18.
West Virginia was plus 18.5, I think. And then, as I was mentioning to Timothy Green before the show, then we got to turn around and play Iowa State, that's number 2 in the country now. this weekend. So these next two games, people hang in there with men's basketball if we lose the next two games, because playing two top 10 teams and really at the top of the Big 12. Let me see how the women are doing here, and then we'll do final comments and bid people adieu for tonight until next week. West Virginia is still up by 9 with about 3.5 left in the third. Start with you, Mickey. Any final comments?
Well, I'd like to just take a moment here, Frank and Greg, in closing and pay a tribute to Bill Toothman, who was president of the Peach State chapter of the West Virginia Alumni Association for the past 35 years. Bill passed away in his sleep night before last, and he's going to be sorely missed by each and every person whose lives he touched. Much more than being what we refer to on this program as a true Mountaineer, which Bill certainly was. I mean, he put his heart and soul into running that Atlanta chapter of the Alumni Association. But more than that, he always had a smile on his face. I can remember innumerable times when we would have a game watch and a new person, a new graduate of WVU would come in to Lassiter's to watch the game, and Bill would be the first person out of his chair to go greet them with a smile on his face, to welcome them into the throes of the Mountaineer spirit. But much beyond that, he was a great father, a great grandfather. He will be sorely missed by all of us. And every person, I've seen so many tributes to him in the last 2 days on Facebook, but so many lives that this man touched. Again, always with a smile on his face, never had a bad word to say about anyone. And we're going to miss him greatly, and we'll memorize him for as long as we're all alive, and the impact that he had on all of us. So may you rest in peace, Bill Toothman.
And we had him on. Mickey had him as a guest on our pregame show a couple of months ago, and Mickey did a remote at a game watch down in Atlanta. So I did not know him, so I got a chance to at least meet him virtually. And so both Greg and I share your loss, and a very important person in WVU. No question about that at all. Greg, why don't you take us home, and we'll do it again next week.
All right. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And like I said, we've got all kinds of Mountaineer stuff going on right now, and it's fun to talk about. It's great to be back, and look forward to being a part of the New River Network. And we'll remind everybody that they can pass on the word that down here in these parts, it'll be on cable all week, and you'll be able to pick it up on YouTube, Facebook, all week long, and you see what kind of production Darren puts out there. So we look forward to coming to you again next Wednesday. We have another great guest that night, and we'll talk some more Mountaineer sports. So again, thanks to everyone for tuning in. We look forward to coming to you again next week. For Frank and Mickey, I'm Greg. Good night, everybody.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Look who's back here from Fox Sports and The Athletic. None other than Bruce Feldman. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, too.
When do you go to Atlanta? When do you hit the ATO?
I will red-eye there this weekend.
Okay.
So I'll get there in time for media days.
So it's what I was about to say. So walk me through, what does it look like? It's like a Super Bowl? Have they laid it out with a Radio Row and everything like that? Or what
yeah, but it's not. Super Bowl, you have the 5 days extravaganza of that, as you know. This is